Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Pat's Travel Pass. Today we are continuing on our JAL business class flight from Narita over to San Diego on JL66 on their Dreamliner-8. Come join us. This is our second flight on our ticket from Osaka all the way to San Diego. So we did have to take a bus from our first flight, go back through security, and finally got to the lounge here. Definitely a better selection than the Atami Osaka airport selection, which had no food. At least this had food and a little bit more drink option, but I would expect this at Narita's main lounge for JAL. Seating was a little busy, I'd say. On the other side here you have a couple more spots, but it definitely was hustling and bustling, so quite a few people moving through this lounge, as JAL is a main carrier here in Japan. Food was still a little lackluster. We have a chocolate chip muffin, a pastry, some Doritos and Oreos. It feels kind of all over the place, and a little cheap, so we gave it a try since we didn't get fed on the short flight over from Osaka, so needed a little snack to keep us going. We only spent about 10 minutes here because the connection was so short, so wanted to get some footage for you all. But I'd say it's okay to spend a few hours here, but nothing more. It's really not worth it. Would love to try out the first class lounge someday, but we got to run, and so we're going to get on Gate 61 to board all the way to San Diego. The plane that we're on is the Dreamliner-8, so the smallest of the variants. Definitely a cozy feel, but I kind of like it because boarding could not be quicker for a flight this long. Plane is 10 years old at the time, and we will be seated in row 7, so that is the second cabin for the business class. No first class on this, only business in a 2-2-2 configuration, and every seat has direct aisle access. So it reminds me like the British Airways business layout, where you kind of have these window seats tucked away, but you still have direct aisle access, which is awesome. But here's our seat: amenity kits, red upholstery, black headrest, pillow, blanket, slippers, headphones, amenity kit, and water. Pretty good offering, I'd say, considering our flight over really had nothing involved, just some hot tea served, so I wasn't expecting much. Tray table pops out from the right there, and the amenity kit, you actually had a girls and a guys version, so this, I believe, was the girl version, but you had an eye mask, I believe this is like a phone holder. Never really used it, didn't really have a purpose for it. Probably have that upside down now that I realize. You get your toothbrush, your tissues, a charging cable, which I thought was an awesome addition. You got earplugs, you got some hand cream. I mean, a pretty good offering, I'd say, for a flight of about 9 hours. Really everything that you would need. So I was pretty happy with that. And then, yeah, direct aisle access with the tray table out, which I loved. Seats ever adjustable here with your defaults at the top, and then everything else you could tweak, especially the firmness, which I really liked, shown by that blue button. Overhead reading light over your right shoulder. Headphone jack, which I thought was in a really smart place, especially when you're laying down. And I love the emblem on the headrest. Really gives it this elegant feel. Now, of course, international carrier on a Boeing, no overhead air vents. And you have this little shelf here on the right, which I thought was handy for boarding in the beginning, but that was really about it. Otherwise, everything was going to be flying off from that little shelf. The cabin looked decent, I'd say. I like the finishes here. Charging cable or charging port there. It's definitely seen better days. It didn't really feel, I'd say, high end. It was just kind of, yeah, okay, it's a business class flight. It's got what you need, but I wouldn't say it was super elegant or fancy. If you're flying with someone you can lower this partition here and share your welcome beverage, champagne, with them, which I thought was pretty neat. Definitely helpful during meal service when you want to chat and kind of have that, um, kind of date feel, if you will, versus just eating alone. The two options for meal service was the international or the more traditional. I chose to go with the more traditional menu just because it felt like we were in Japan. We were trying a lot of great food. I wanted to kind of keep that going, especially because the food was one of the highlights from the trip, and I wanted to stay out of my comfort zone a little bit. Champagne and wine menu was excellent. I'd say plenty of offerings for both white and red, as well as your beer or any spirits. Um, they had little explanations on each wine, and I really liked having that. Sake as well was present on the flight. Didn't try any, but nice to see that they have pretty much any option that you could want, including the bar and Japanese whiskey at the bottom, which is what a lot of whiskey drinkers know and love. Plenty of beverages here, non-alcoholic, coffee, juice as well. And with that, we were pushing back from the gate. Now, Narita is one of two main airports in Tokyo. This one is about an hour northeast of the city. If you have any options, I would go to Haneda instead of Narita. But let's listen in to these Dreamliner engines take us away. I'd say through and through, my favorite part of any flight is right after takeoff, where you have these 30 to 45 minutes of anticipation of the meal service, because it's going to be pretty good. You're checking out the seat, relaxing, watching the sun, watching the landscape pass by or the ocean. So I always enjoy these 30 to 45 minutes after takeoff. And just like that, we have a hot towel promptly 20 minutes after takeoff. It was pretty dang hot, so I had to let it cool down a little bit. Requested a gin and tonic, and they made it perfectly with a slice of lemon. I find that on a lot of international carriers, they tend to not mix it as well or put any citrus, so I thought that was really great. Breadsticks with some warmed nuts, as well as some sort of like a hummus, I'd say. I don't know if it was exactly that, but a nice little starter, a little bit different. I do wish the breadsticks were taken out of the package, though. I thought that was a little funny. As we took off at about 5:30 p.m. Local time, we're going to catch a nice sunset here before landing in San Diego late morning. Tray table was set, and we were locked in. Now, like I mentioned, if you like your neighbor, you can leave it down, but if you don't know your neighbor, you can always lift it up pretty easily, and then you have this private little cocoon. And here's our traditional starter, a nice bento box, and I really liked that on the menu they had the little squares exactly with what the bento box looks like, so you know exactly what you're eating. Made it really clear on what I was actually trying, so I really appreciated that. With the starter out of the way, we got our main here. No image to match up, but they did come around and ask if we wanted wine with dinner, which I really appreciated. I know on some of the previous reviews, no additional beverage options were offered up, so it was nice to have that. With dinner out of the way, we had some sort of pudding here. I forget what the name was, but all the food was actually really delicious, and then ended with a fruit cup, which I think is pretty traditional in terms of dessert internationally. They don't give you all the sugary ice cream or cakes. It's usually fruit. This heated eye mask was kind of like a nice touch for going to sleep, which I really appreciated. Bathroom was really clean. You had some extra hand lotions, soaps, but just like Japanese culture, they kept things immaculate. And of course, there is a bidet on board, which this was my first time finding one on a plane, so I thought that was kind of neat. Now this is how you get back into the seat. It is definitely snug here, with the tray table even spun around, but yeah, you'll need to kind of finesse your way in. As we were about 8 to 9 p.m. local time, I thought it would be good to get some rest, as it would be a very long day once we landed. I'm in the bulkhead here in the second little cabin, and so the footwell was unlimited, essentially. There was no confinements above or on the side, really, like you'd see on some of the more traditional herringbone seats. So this was great to have plenty of leg space and really spread out horizontally. Vertically, I'm 6 foot, and I had plenty of space. You can see there's probably a good 6 to 12 inches beyond my foot in the footwell there for anyone that's well into the 6 foot range. Flight entertainment, you have a big screen in front of you that's pretty far away, so you can't really touch it, but you have this little remote that pops out of the wall. It was not responsive at first, but I think I was just clicking in the wrong spot. You kind of had to click a little bit above the icon. But now it seems to work just fine, clicking exactly where the icon shows it. Plenty of movies and shows, but I just never really got around to it. It was a bit laggy, as you can see here, especially with like the scroll features, so that kind of turned me off from actually using the entertainment system, and I just decided to watch my own stuff. Now, to be honest, the traditional menu did not sit the best with me. My stomach was pretty upset after eating all that, so I actually completely passed on breakfast or any other food of any kind and just stuck to ginger ale to try and get my stomach to cooperate with me. First time I've ever had that on a plane regarding food, which was really surprising because this was, 4 or 5 hours after the dinner service. So yeah, kind of surprising. Popped up out of nowhere, especially after sleeping for the 4 or 5 hours. Breakfast, though, was pretty basic, I'd say, like any other airline breakfast. 2 options as well, traditional or international. But we made our quick descent into San Diego International. Love sitting on the left side and seeing downtown as you come over the hill. It's one of the most difficult airports to land in from what I've read. So you always put your trust in the pilot, especially on this one. San Diego is also the busiest single runway airport in the world. So it's always kind of cool to see what planes are queued up waiting to take off as they finessed this airport into this little area next to the bay. Now, I've never landed internationally here at San Diego, as they only have 2 terminals and they all seem to be connected, unlike some of the other major airports that have these huge standalone international terminals. So I was really curious to see how this works. Basically, they have a couple gates here at the end for their 4 European-based and Asia-based flights per day. And so it takes you up into a different corridor for customs, which I thought was kind of neat. But that was our Japan Airlines Dreamliner business review. I really hope you enjoyed it and found something useful from today, and we'll see you next time.